wish you all an abundance of energy, peace, and hearts filled with love. Our minds often wander and think about the future because we believe that the future will always be better than the present. So we hope, wait, and look towards the future. Every hour, every minute, we think about the future, devising many ways, many methods, many plans, many projects to make our lives better. Over time, after a few months, it forms a natural habit, and we don't even notice. We don't realize that when we think about the future, we're missing out on living in the present. It means we don't have the right view. We don't have the belief that just being present in the moment is enough to be happy. Even if we try to dwell in the present, we can't bear to maintain that feeling for long, to maintain that attitude for long. Because if we only dwell in the present, what will become of the future? Next month, next year, or in 2 or 3 years, what will we be like? Especially for young people who haven't built a career yet, who don't have significant achievements, who haven't realized their ambitions and ideals. So we always try to take advantage of thinking about the future, thinking about projects, plans, and we grant ourselves the right to do so. Of course, it's our life, so we have the right to do that. But when we think about the future, not less. It's only one part of our consciousness that wants that, but the other part might not. At least our body needs relaxation and release. When we think about the future, our body is always tense. It's tense and can be said to be draining energy. And when we think about the future, we stir up some internal troubles such as worry and fear, panic, confusion, and even anger. Therefore, it's very difficult for young people to keep their minds steady in the present moment. We must have a very strong right view. Right view means believing that the present moment is enough to make us happy, and the future will be of the same nature as the present. If we know how to dwell and live deeply in the present, we will also grasp the future in that way. That is a kind of right view, and this right view only becomes strong when we experience many hardships and many storms. After many experiences and years in life, we learn from experience that we once dreamed, wished, and hoped, and we achieved it. But then that feeling of elation faded very quickly, and we continued to desire, continued to hope, continued to wait for something else. Repeating this many times, we feel that something is wrong here. We must have another way to live, because living by just sitting and waiting, hopelessly hoping to be happy, is tiring. Why can't happiness be available right now? We need to contemplate things thoroughly, like that, and then we consult, we seek, learn, and then we finally come to a viewpoint or a perspective, and we call that a right view, not less a correct perspective, which according to the Buddha's teachings is that happiness is only present in the current moment. The past is gone, and the future is just a shadow. It's vague. What we can grasp is only the present, and life is present. If we're not present in the moment, then we can't truly live. We might exist, but we're not really living. We don't live wholeheartedly, not completely, or we live as if we're already dead. Therefore, bringing our mind back to the present moment is a very difficult process. We must be persistent, courageous, and determined. And we must practice diligently and continuously to establish a new habit for ourselves, the habit of thinking less about the future, disregarding the future, and instead living deeply in the present. When we disregard the future, it doesn't mean we neglect the present and indulge in pleasures or passions. We disregard the future because we dedicate all our time to the present. Here, we need to build a mental mechanism to cherish the values we're currently experiencing. In the past, we lived for the future and abandoned the present, missing many of its wonderful values. So, when we bring our mind back to the present completely, even if it's just for 3 to 5 minutes, those 3 minutes are 3 to 5 minutes of peace and joy. Peace means tranquility and happiness. We can deeply connect with what's happening in the present, and we start to see clearly, examine each object carefully, and begin to see the connection between ourselves and that object, see the mutual nourishment. For example, when we drink water, when we lift the glass of water in that moment, there's only us and the glass of water. We don't allow any disturbances in our minds to intrude. And we drink that glass of water with a grateful attitude, because we can live thanks to water. And when we're grateful like that, we'll be very happy. A person who always sees that the kindness of the objects around them is a very happy person. And conversely, people who live with an ungrateful attitude are very miserable. Those people can never be happy. So, when we bring our mind back to the present, whatever we look at becomes clear. Whatever we interact with, we see its deep value. Of course, it also depends on the strength of our presence, how many layers of the object we can access. That means the more you cultivate mindfulness and presence, the more you'll connect with the true value, access the true values of every object, because we have said to each other that we will never fully connect and accurately with what's happening in reality. And this is also the view of scientists. And when we have the experience, try experiencing 3 to 5 minutes of living in the feeling peace, a happiness that comes from tranquility. Of course, even someone who doesn't meditate knows how to. They figured out and discovered how to connect with the present. After they gained the right view that happiness is only real in the present moment, but it's not easy to tame our minds. And the habit of constantly thinking and worrying is so strong that it can pull us away from reality at any moment. So we need some basic techniques to bring the mind back to the present. The best way, of course, is that we also need a high level of determination and effort, diligent practice. The techniques to bring the mind back to the present are described by the Buddha in a very detailed way in the Satipatthana Sutta. The 4 foundations of mindfulness, which means establishing mindfulness or observation in 4 areas, or 4 groups, or 4 categories, or 4 places. First, the body. The Buddha said there is an object that you can use for your mind to rely on. Instead of letting it wander aimlessly, bring it and place it on the body, based on the meditation experience of spiritual masters. Meditation masters and my own experience, there are some special parts of our body that we can use to keep our mind in the present, to develop mindfulness. First of all, it's the facial muscles, the face of yourself. Regularly remind yourself to pay attention to your face. Pay attention and relax it, along with another action, relaxing, because our face is often tense or frowning. So when we remind ourselves to relax our face, and if combined with a smile, that relaxation will be prolonged. So at that time, we will pay attention to our entire face, or we can pay attention to our lips that are smiling slightly, or we can pay attention to our eyes that are gently closed, like when we are meditating, for example, while we are picking vegetables, while we are cleaning the house, while we are walking, while we are doing something, while we are talking on the phone. We can also remind ourselves to pay attention to our face, to our facial muscles on both sides of the cheekbones, or our lips, or our eyes. We can pay attention to any part of our body. For a new meditation practitioner, just practicing like this can bring about positive changes. At least it makes us less stressed and less worried. Before, we didn't know how to cut off the anxiety, cut off the thinking, cut off the distractions. Now we have an object, our facial muscles. However, there is a condition. You observe your facial muscles with a pure mind, a natural mind, without imposing, without stuffing, without burdening, without imagining anything, but you just feel it directly. This is a bit difficult, but with practice, we can do it. And there are other parts of our body, like you can also relax your whole body, relax from your shoulders, arms, and fingers. Whether you are sitting, standing, or walking, just always remind yourself to relax, relax. Even if you are sweeping the floor, cooking, you are painting, repairing, or assembling something, you also remind yourself to relax, even when you're meditating. Keep reminding yourself to let go. Because when meditating, you might be too focused on one particular thing, and you allow your body to tense up or lack relaxation. When you lack relaxation, it's very difficult to focus or observe. So, keep reminding yourself to relax or let go or smile. There are many reasons to smile. We can smile when we see the sun rise, when we see the dewdrops disappear, flowers bloom. Smile when you see a dog wagging its tail, a baby smiling, or when you hear a bell ringing or a loud noise. Just smile. This is just a convention. You set it yourself. Every time you see something or hear something, you smile. Smiling is a way to maintain mindfulness, to maintain your presence. And when you smile, at least there's a contribution from your will. You might not feel like smiling, but you remind yourself that you should smile to push away anxiety or some minor annoyances. Of course, there are very big annoyances that you can't push away with willpower through a smile. But those annoyances that aren't big enough, if you try to smile, settle into that smile and let go of everything, then those annoyances at least temporarily won't swell up, won't develop, and sometimes they might even retreat a few steps. Because a smile that comes naturally usually doesn't contain any annoyance unless you're faking a smile, or smiling to please someone, or a forced smile is different. This is a smile that comes from practice. Besides, we have many other reasons to smile, like realizing we're still alive, still have many opportunities to reinvent ourselves, still have many opportunities to fix shortcomings, mistakes, still have many opportunities to contribute to life. We smile because we feel so happy that we don't need to think anymore, and we can still live. Before, we thought that if we didn't think, we wouldn't know what we'd be like. We'd be someone who doesn't worry about the future, someone who isn't careful, someone who isn't thoughtful. But now we feel very secure, even though we don't worry about anything, but we feel very secure because we're living very firmly in this moment. We smile because we see that we've brought our mind back to our body. We're happy. We thought it would be very difficult to bring our mind back, because during practice, you'll see that there are times when you can't bring your mind back. But there are times when we make a strong effort, and due to certain conditions, circumstances, or the weather, we've managed to keep our mind in the present moment for a few minutes, so we can deeply feel what's happening. Then we're happy, we're not stressed, not worried, not afraid anymore, so we smile. We smile because our mind has returned to our body. Our body and mind have connected. That also means we've started connecting back to reality, to life on our body. We can still use our legs as a tool to practice meditation, develop mindfulness, to maintain presence. That's when we start practicing walking a little slower. Not too slow, so it doesn't feel unnatural. Because we still have to work, still have to interact, unless we're in a meditation retreat, a specialized training. If we're not doing anything else, we can walk really slowly. Because the slower we walk, the easier it is to observe, the longer we can keep our mind in the present for longer. But if we're still making a living, still interacting with people around us, still have many things to do, then we walk at a normal pace. But if possible, slow down a little. But the important thing is that while walking, we should observe our steps instead of constantly thinking and worrying as we usually do, or focusing on the destination we're heading to. When we walk and observe our steps, relax our feet, and feel when we lift our feet and place them down, feeling our entire foot touching the ground, we find ourselves very light and comfortable, especially when we have emotional storms inside. When we have emotional storms, we must not compromise with them, not identify with them, meaning don't let the emotional storm take over our entire being, so we don't become someone who is angry, sad, or disappointed. Anger, sadness, disappointment are just passing emotional storms. Now we practice stepping out of those emotions, not identifying with them, by focusing on something present in the moment so our mind can settle. This prevents energy depletion. Walking is a good choice. I've noticed many long-time meditation practitioners who haven't utilized their feet to support mindfulness development. They still walk quite fast, hurried and rushed. Of course, there are times when we need to walk fast, but even when walking fast, we can still be mindful and observe. The important thing is whether our mind feels the feet walking fast or if it's thinking about something else. Whereas in other situations, we should have the courage and determination to practice walking very slowly, and our feet will help us to settle in the present moment. It can even help you develop concentration, provided that you walk very slowly. You can walk in a room or in a hallway, in a small space, and if you walk each step very slowly, you can also develop concentration. That is, when our mind is wildly wandering and we can't meditate or don't have the opportunity to meditate, we should use slow walking and observe our steps in 3 stages or more, lifting the foot, moving the foot forward, and placing the foot down. Also, while we are walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, which in meditation is called the 4 postures, we can all pay attention to them. Have you ever sat down with awareness, stood up, moved a chair, reached for chopsticks, bent down to put on socks, reached for the light switch while you're showering, while you're washing clothes, while you're sitting down planting vegetables, then standing up digging soil? In those actions, do you take advantage of them to develop mindfulness, or do you continue to think, continue with old habits, plan projects, make plans from the future, or regret the past? So, fortunately, we can practice meditation at any time, anywhere, because if it's only during sitting meditation, it's probably not enough to help us achieve balance in life or to overcome afflictions. Besides the mind and body, there is another place where we can develop mindfulness, our breath. Before, we breathe unconsciously, not knowing we were breathing, but now we begin to place awareness in our breath. The Buddha spoke of the anapanasati, which means mindfulness of breathing, or mindfulness or contemplation of breath. Anapana means breathing in and breathing out. Just breathing in and breathing out. Of course, even if you don't pay attention to your breath, it still goes in and out. But you should take advantage of it. Before, you let it go in and out naturally without paying any attention. But you know that breath is very important. If you breathe in and don't breathe out, you're gone. So, This is also an opportunity to connect with our breath, to cherish and nurture it. And through the breath, your mind becomes more focused. It takes quite a bit of time to learn the breathing technique to maintain a natural breath, while keeping your mind in the present, focused on the breath. Fortunately, we can practice observing our breath anywhere, while we're bathing, driving, writing, ringing the bell, or sitting and listening to a Dharma talk. We can follow our breath. Occasionally follow the breath. Sometimes observe the facial muscles. Sometimes remember to smile. Remember to relax the whole body. Keep changing the topic, meaning the objects of continuous observation. This depends on the needs, or depends on the experience, or depends on our intelligence and cleverness, so we know in this moment, at this moment, what part of our body we should pay attention to best focus our mind, to best dwell in the present. If we try focusing on our steps and it doesn't work, we switch to our facial muscles. But if our facial muscles are too tense, the more we pay attention, the tenser they get, then we switch back to the breath. If we switch to the breath and feel breathless and don't feel relaxed, we can pay attention to each movement of the body. But if that doesn't work either, there's still another very, very pleasant object, the scenery outside. Although the scenery outside, meaning all things, all events, which in Buddhist teachings are called Dhamma, in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, it's only ranked in 4th place. The first is the body, the second is feelings, the third is the mind, and the 4th is a Dhamma. These positions are arranged like that, and there are times when we should follow that principle, but there are times when we have to switch positions, not rigidly following that order. We follow that order when we're beginners. When starting to practice, we should go through each layer: body, feelings and mind. And even at Dhamma, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is, the Buddha encourages developing the body the most, giving priority to developing the body. But if we can't develop the body and we're really stuck, then we develop Dhamma, because Dhamma has scenery, and scenery is very pleasant. Scenery has colors. For example, you look at the foliage, green, look at the golden rice fields, look at the still lake, the hills, blue, the drifting clouds, or a blooming flower. Our mind calms down immediately. But scenery is very difficult to observe, because when you observe scenery, you get caught up in it. Whatever you observe, you can get caught up in it, or at least you imagine you'll connect it with images from the past or that are about to happen in the future when you observe a scene. If you observe people outside, it's even more uncomfortable, even more complicated. So, even though you can observe scenery in the early stages of practice, only observe it superficially in a very limited way. Observe the scenery, but in reality, if you're not in a vipassana retreat, you still have to interact with scenery every day, Even if you don't want to observe, you still have to interact. So now, try to put observation, put mindfulness into it. The result shows that it's very difficult to observe. We often slide along the external objects, so observing external objects is only a last resort when you can't observe the body anymore. And the secret of observing the body or observing Dhamma is to observe it as it is appearing. That's the secret to helping you have a pure energy of mindfulness. In technical terms, Kolet is called contemplation of the body within the body, or contemplation of the Dharma within the Dharma. T.T. Nimeksen is translated as the 4 foundations of mindfulness. A mindfulness consists of 4 foundations of four domains body. Feelings, mind and Dharma. Regarding the body, the principle for observing the body is contemplation of the body within the body. Regarding feelings, it's contemplation of feelings within feelings. For the mind, contemplation of the mind within the mind. And for Dharma, contemplation of Dharma within Dharma. If you're just a researcher, you won't easily understand these concise and evocative phrases. If you're just a researcher, you won't easily understand these concise and evocative phrases. Some traditions have even misunderstood. Some meditation traditions have misunderstood and practiced according to that misunderstanding. That misunderstanding being contemplation of the body within the body, which some traditions translate as awareness of the body in the body. And that's similar to the others. Awareness of the feeling in the feeling. Awareness of the mind in the mind. Awareness of dharmas in the dharmas. Translating it like that is very difficult to understand or very wrong. Contemplation of the body within the body means observing the body, but within the body itself. How so? So, when you hear the phrase contemplation of the body within the body, in order to understand and practice it, you must know that it's a miracle. That is, these kinds of texts, these experiences are not widely circulated so that anyone studying mindfulness of breath or the 4 foundations of mindfulness can understand it all. Contemplation of the body within the body means observe the body as it is appearing in that moment, at that time. That's why we translate it as awareness or mindfulness of the body as the body is. As the body is means, observe the body without interfering to correct it. Don't control it, mold it, or imagine you're decorating it. Don't cover it with prejudices or preconceived notions. In general, take all the clutter in your head, whether they're good prejudices or bad prejudices, good preconceptions or bad preconceptions. In general, all the experiences and accumulated knowledge you have, put them all aside and use a pure mind. Just observe the body with a pure mind. That's the meaning of contemplation of the body within the body. This understanding comes from the experience of practicing Vipassana. Only then can you understand the phrase contemplation of the body within the body. when you read the scriptures, it's very difficult to understand or you misunderstand. And as I said, there are some meditation traditions in the world that have misunderstood this idea. So they've translated it as awareness of the body in the body, which is, and I don't know how to practice that. That is, when your body is tense, you acknowledge that it's tense. When it's relaxed, you acknowledge that it's relaxed. If your face is contorted, acknowledge that it's contorted. If it's radiant, acknowledge that it's radiant. If you're walking very fast, acknowledge that you're walking very fast. If you're sitting without a straight back, acknowledge that you're not sitting straight, although you acknowledge it first, and then correct your posture. Do this to avoid damaging your spine, but don't pretend, don't imagine or misunderstand the object you're observing, even though you're observing your footsteps. If you see your footsteps are fast, you'll automatically slow down. But at least you knew it beforehand. When you slow down, your footsteps were already very fast, and they were fast like that for a reason. That's because of desire, anxiety, and agitation in the mind pushing you. By following those fast footsteps, you know what's happening in your mind. By following those fast footsteps, you know what's happening in your mind. Therefore, when you develop the skill of observing the body as it is, observing in a pure way, like that, you'll be able to observe other categories in the same pure way, such as observing feelings as they are, observing the mind, the reactions of the mind, the emotions, the impulses as they are. If you can observe your afflictions as they are, then you can understand their nature. But if you interfere to adjust, to modify, to embellish, to add your own spin, or to comment, criticize, evaluate, generally, the junk in your head that appears every time you observe something, it immediately obscures it, preventing you from seeing its true nature. So here, you're developing your capacity for pure observation, allowing everything to unfold naturally. Of course, if you see something that could lead to wrongdoing or danger or harm, affecting ethical principles, then use your will to stop it, but at least be aware of its state beforehand, at that moment, as you observe it. For example, when you're angry, acknowledge it. There's no need to be ashamed. If you lose control or are absent-minded, just acknowledge it. The goal of meditation is to build awareness, meaning constant knowing, or the ability to know what's happening and to let it be. Of course, if you're not a dedicated practitioner and don't prioritize meditation, you'll still be concerned with success, failure, gain, and loss, beauty. Ugliness winning and losing will matter, making it hard to let things be. But sometimes you don't need to impose your will or fight for success or avoid failure. In those moments, seize the opportunity to deepen your meditation and cultivate a pure, observant mind. For instance, when you look at a leaf, a flower bud, a still lake, or drifting clouds, you don't need to add anything to it, right? You can observe it purely, right? You don't need to see a plane and think of a related poem, or see a lake and suddenly want a boat to row around, or look at a leaf and lament, oh, where will this leaf go when it falls? Skip the extras. Observe it purely. So when you know how to observe the body purely as it is, you can move on to the harder parts, observing feelings as they are, observing the mind as it is, and observing phenomena as they are. That's all there is to meditation. Simple. Simple and concise, yet so hard to do. First, bringing the mind back to the present is very difficult. To be present for a few hours a day is good. Have you ever calculated how many hours you're actually present each day? Or is it just minutes? And is today better than yesterday? Just bringing the mind back to the present is hard enough. That's the foundation of meditation. And if we don't get this right, we can't expect to progress. And once you bring the mind back to the present, how do you observe without old habits? Our old habits are to observe as if we already know, or not really observe at all, seeing without seeing, or being clouded by the junk in our heads, prejudices, biases, impulses, and emotions. These prevent us from seeing things as they truly are. So, how do we train ourselves to observe purely? If we can't observe everything purely all day long, then let's start with a few things. Whether we're observing nature, our own hands, or the way we walk, if we can observe purely, why not try a little harder each day, reminding ourselves to observe a bit more? Because observing like that isn't as appealing as observing others. Observing with comments, evaluations, and criticisms is more attractive. But observing without any attitude, without any comments, is dull. But if you persistently practice for a while, you'll find that observing without any evaluation is incredibly liberating. Because when we evaluate, when we comment, when we criticize, unless we have a responsibility to guide or support others, most of it is an act controlled by afflictions, manipulated by the ego. It's an action of the ego, comparing whether that person is better or worse than us. Even when you praise someone, it can come from afflictions. Praising means we want to connect with the good things, and those good things must belong to us. We praise so we know we have a certain level to be able to evaluate the goodness of this person. We praise so we see that we belong to those good things. Of course, some praise comes from compassion, from support, from the purity of the soul, praise to encourage or admire. But even praise from admiration is from the ego, meaning we dream of being like that. So, let alone criticism. Most criticism comes from afflictions, from discomfort, jealousy, demands, and contempt. Of course, there are exceptions. Some criticisms come from love, from support, or from revelation, helping the other person to cling less or to let go of the ego. So, when we practice a pure mind without praise or criticism, just with feeling, it's incredibly light and liberating. And even if we praise or criticize, it's not a problem here. We can observe that praise or criticism as well. So, while we observe the body, it's connected to the part about speech. Although in Buddhist teachings, it's divided into 3 karmas: body, speech, and mind. That is separating body and speech. But in the 4 foundations of mindfulness, we can group speech with the body as well. When you speak, are you mindful? Do you observe? If you observe, you wouldn't speak so quickly. You wouldn't stutter. You wouldn't speak so hastily. You wouldn't speak so harshly. And in your tone, there wouldn't be contempt, discrimination, disrespect for others, flattery of one person, or putting another down. In speech, there wouldn't be boasting, performance, or concealment. In speech, there wouldn't be sarcasm, teasing, etc. All of that, everything just mentioned, is affliction. If we meditate and don't observe where affliction is operating, it's a great waste. And in the Eightfold Path, it's called right speech. Right speech isn't just speaking truthfully, but right speech means you must be mindful of your speech, observing the tone you're using, the speed of your speech, the words you use, observing your attitude while speaking. Speaking with a genuine heart or a performing, coping heart. Speaking with a pure heart or a heart full of afflictions. That's called speaking with mindfulness or being aware in speech. That's an interesting practice. And even when you practice silence, that's also part of right speech. You don't want to keep creating negative energy, bad karma. So I've been practicing stopping myself, and if I do speak, I'll say things that nurture mindfulness or peace of mind in others. I only say things that make people feel comfortable, at ease, or awakened. That's called practicing right speech. So, speech is also an effective tool for you to develop your mindfulness. Sometimes you observe your body, sometimes your speech. While speaking, prioritize observing your speech. At least remind yourself to speak in a relaxed manner. Your words should be gentle. If you have a harsh, heavy voice, then with mindful practice of observing your speech, you'll eventually develop a gentle, pleasant quality in your speech. It will have a calmness that makes it easy to listen to and accept. If observing speech is called right speech, then observing of the body falls under right action, which is part of the Eightfold Path. That means speech that doesn't cause trouble, negative energy, or judge others is called right speech. That's the deeper aspect. The surface level is observing each word, each gesture, each volume of your voice or your attitude while speaking. As for right speech, right action, that's observing your body when you move, when you walk, stand, sit, lie down. Observing each part of your body is the surface level of right action. The deeper aspect is not letting this body take actions that create bad karma, not letting this body take actions that harm others. Day 3, practice observing your breath. Day 4, practice observing your footsteps. Posture while walking, standing, sitting, and lying down. Day 5, practice observing your speech. Day 6, practice observing the objects around you. Day 7, practice observing, combining your facial muscles with your breath. Then on Sunday, combine your breath with your footsteps, or your footsteps with relaxation, or your footsteps with a smile. You can combine the objects of observation with each other. This depends on your practice experience. Whichever you feel goes well together for your situation, then continue and boldly apply it. The more you apply it, the clearer you'll know what can go with what suits you. That becomes your experience, and based on this experience you can convincingly guide others, because you've actually practiced these teachings. It's not too difficult. The theories of meditation practice aren't too difficult. You need a mindful mind to listen wholeheartedly, and you can understand. However, the step from understanding to practice is a very long distance. To shorten this distance, you must have determination and perseverance. Determination without perseverance is useless. You're determined, but then you give up. You promise yourself and then continue to follow your old habits. So it requires perseverance. To be persistent, you must accept letting go of old habits. Letting go of old habits is very uncomfortable, even painful. In this journey, you accept shedding, accept abandoning the old self to invite the new self within. It's very difficult to express to you the feeling of peace and true happiness when you dwell in the present, when you can observe an object with a pure mind. But you can believe one thing: when your soul is at peace, without worries, you see everything as beautiful, radiant, magical, and worthy. Love. And I believe that most people have experienced that feeling of loving life and everyone in it, but also hating it, being bored, and wanting to give up. Those moments of hate, boredom, and wanting to quit are when afflictions pull the strings, when the junk in our mind starts to take over. So practicing meditation doesn't just mean learning to sit still, count breaths, or slow things down. Meditation teaches you to see life with new eyes. You begin to explore the life around you in a new way, seeing everything purely, with a pure heart. It's about seeing things as they truly are, not as our clouded minds perceive them. It sounds difficult, but we can practice starting with the easy and moving to the difficult. It requires effort and persistence. If each day passes and you find you've made no effort to bring your mind back to the present, or no reminder to look at things purely, then this exercise is not for you, and the opportunity to open your eyes to see life anew will be very distant. Thank you for listening.